The afternoon silence at Maple Grove Elementary shattered. A child's desperate sobs echoed through the empty hallway like broken glass. Marcus Thompson froze mid-stride, his mop bucket clattering against the tile floor. There, crumpled against the cold concrete wall, sat a 7-year-old girl drowning in her own terror. Her tiny body convulsed with each ragged breath. Designer clothes couldn't hide the raw fear consuming her small frame. Marcus approached slowly, his weathered hands already reaching for the plastic bottle tucked in his utility belt. No words, just bubbles. Golden spheres erupted from his makeshift wand, floating like tiny miracles through the dusty air. The child's hysteria melted away, replaced by wonder. From the shadows near the glass entrance, a figure emerged. Expensive heels clicked against polished stone. A woman in a $1,000 suit pressed her trembling fingers against the window, watching this stranger save her daughter's world with nothing but soap and kindness. Marcus had no idea that this simple act of kindness was about to change 2 families forever. Marcus Thompson had learned that silence could heal better than words. 3 years of raising 9-year-old Emma alone had taught him that much. Every morning at 5:30, he'd kiss his sleeping daughter goodbye and drive his rusted pickup truck to Maple Grove Elementary, where he'd spend the next 10 hours mopping floors, fixing broken desks, and keeping the building spotless for 400 students who barely noticed he existed. The pay was terrible, the hours long, but it kept them afloat in their cramped trailer on the outskirts of Millbrook, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, it meant he could be there when Emma got off the school bus every afternoon, ready with a snack and homework help. The bubble solution was Sarah's idea, back when she was still alive to share such wisdom. "When Emma gets overwhelmed," she'd whispered from her hospital bed, cancer stealing her voice but not her love, "blow bubbles. She'll focus on something beautiful instead of something scary." Marcus had been carrying that little plastic bottle for 3 years now, using it whenever Emma had nightmares or when storms made her anxious. He never expected it would help someone else's child. He never expected that someone else would be watching. Catherine Morrison stood frozen behind the glass doors, her heart hammering against her ribs as she watched this stranger work magic with soap and water. Her daughter Lily, who'd been having panic attacks for months since the divorce, was actually smiling. The 7-year-old was reaching for the floating bubbles, her terror replaced by childlike wonder. Kate had tried everything, countless therapists, expensive medications, even flying in specialists from New York. Nothing worked. Yet this janitor in work clothes had accomplished in minutes what teams of professionals couldn't manage in months. She'd been coming to Millbrook for 2 weeks now, driving the hour from Philadelphia whenever Lily's anxiety became unbearable. The small town offered something their penthouse couldn't provide: anonymity. Here, Lily could just be a little girl instead of the daughter of Morrison Industries' CEO. Here, nobody whispered about the messy divorce or photographed them leaving therapy sessions. Kate pressed her business card deeper into her purse, where Lily couldn't see the title that had defined her entire adult life. For now, she was just another single mother, desperate to help her child heal. Marcus finished cleaning his makeshift wand on his shirt and tucked it back into his belt. The little girl with blonde hair had stopped crying completely, now chasing the last few bubbles as they drifted toward the ceiling. He'd seen her around school before, but never up close. Her clothes screamed money, from the designer sneakers to the backpack that probably cost more than his monthly rent. But pain was pain, regardless of the price tag on your outfit. He knelt down to her level, his voice gentle as autumn rain. "You feeling better now, sweetheart?" "How did you make them so pretty?" Lily whispered, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. Her green eyes, still puffy from crying, sparkled with curiosity instead of fear. Marcus smiled, the same patient expression he'd perfected with Emma. "Magic's in the ingredients." he said, pulling out the bottle again. Dish soap, a little corn syrup, and something most people forget. Lily leaned closer, intrigued. What's that? Marcus winked. You gotta blow them with love. That's what makes them shine. The sound of expensive heels clicking across tile made both of them look up. Kate approached slowly, her designer mask slipping just enough to reveal the exhausted mother underneath. She'd practiced this moment during the drive from Philadelphia, rehearsing casual conversation that wouldn't reveal who she really was. But seeing her daughter calm and curious instead of panicked and withdrawn, all her careful words evaporated. Thank you, she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. I've never seen her recover from an episode so quickly. Marcus stood up, instinctively straightening his shoulders despite the difference in their clothing. Kate was stunning in that effortless way that money could buy, all sleek hair and perfect makeup. But there were dark circles under her eyes that no concealer could fully hide, and her hands shook slightly as she smoothed Lily's hair. Kids just need to remember they're safe, Marcus said simply. Sometimes bubbles help with that. Kate studied his face, searching for judgment or pity. She found neither, only kindness that seemed as natural as breathing. I'm Kate, she said, extending a manicured hand toward his work-roughened palm. And this is Lily. Marcus shook her hand gently, surprised by how small and soft it felt. Marcus Thompson, pleasure to meet you both. He turned toward Lily, who was still staring at the empty space where the bubbles had been. Maybe I'll see you around school sometime, Miss Lily. I'm here most days, keeping things tidy. The little girl nodded solemnly, then surprised them both by throwing her arms around Marcus's waist in a fierce hug before running back to her mother. Kate watched her daughter transform from a frightened shell into something resembling a normal child, and felt hope flicker in her chest for the first time in months. This man had done something beautiful without expecting anything in return. In her world of corporate climbing and calculated kindness, such genuine compassion felt revolutionary. As they walked toward the parking lot, Lily chattering about the bubble man and already asking when they could come back, Kate found herself studying Marcus Thompson through the reflection in the glass doors. Who was he really? This janitor who carried magic in a plastic bottle. 2 days later, Kate's BMW broke down in the Millbrook town square, steam rising from under the hood like accusations of her privilege. She'd been driving aimlessly again, hoping the small-town atmosphere would calm Lily's pre-bedtime anxiety. Now they sat stranded outside Murphy's General Store, while other shoppers stared at the expensive car that clearly didn't belong. Kate fumbled with her phone, trying to decide between calling her private mechanic or roadside assistance, when a familiar voice interrupted her panic. Engine trouble? Marcus approached from across the street, still wearing his work clothes but carrying a small toolbox. The temperature gauge went crazy about 5 minutes ago, Kate admitted, feeling foolish for not knowing more about cars that cost more than most people's houses. Marcus popped the hood and peered inside, his practiced hands moving with confidence among the expensive German engineering. Radiator hose came loose, he diagnosed after a few minutes. Simple fix, but you can't drive it like this. He produced a roll of electrical tape from his toolbox and went to work, his movements efficient and sure. Kate watched his hands as he worked, noticing scars and calluses that told stories of a lifetime spent fixing things. You don't have to do this, Kate protested, though gratitude flooded her voice. Marcus glanced up with that same patient smile she'd seen him give Lily. Can't leave a lady stranded, he said, then caught himself. I mean anyone stranded. Equal opportunity roadside assistance. Kate laughed despite herself, the first genuine laugh she'd managed in weeks. There was something refreshing about his awkward honesty, so different from the polished charm she encountered in boardrooms. Well, this lady appreciates it. she said. "More than you know." Lily emerged from the back seat where she'd been quietly reading, drawn by the sound of her mother's laughter. "Hi, Bubble Man," she called out cheerfully, making Marcus grin as he tightened the hose clamp. "Hey there, Miss Lily. How's your day treating you?" The little girl launched into an elaborate story about the butterflies she'd seen in the town park, her hands gesturing wildly as she described their colors and flight patterns. Kate watched in amazement as her typically shy daughter chattered away to this virtual stranger like they were old friends. "She doesn't usually warm up to people so quickly," Kate murmured, low enough that only Marcus could hear. He finished with the radiator and closed the hood, wiping his hands on an old rag from his toolbox. "Kids know good hearts from fake ones," he said simply. "They don't care about the packaging." Kate felt heat rise in her cheeks, wondering if that was some kind of commentary on her expensive clothes and careful makeup. But when she looked at Marcus, she saw no judgment, only the same gentle kindness he'd shown Lily during her panic attack. "How much do I owe you for the repair?" Kate asked, reaching for her purse. Marcus shook his head firmly. "Nothing. Happy to help." Kate frowned, uncomfortable with receiving charity, even though she could buy his entire trailer park without checking her bank balance. "At least let me buy you coffee or something. There's got to be a diner around here." Marcus hesitated, glancing between Kate and Lily. The little girl was now picking dandelions from the sidewalk cracks, humming to herself with the contentment of a child who felt safe. "Actually," he said slowly, "there's a place that makes the best pie in 3 counties. But I should warn you, it's not fancy." 20 minutes later, they sat in a red vinyl booth at Dolly's Diner, where the coffee came in chipped mugs and the apple pie was served warm with vanilla ice cream that actually tasted like vanilla. Kate felt absurdly overdressed in her designer clothes, but Lily was in heaven, swinging her legs from the high booth seat and chattering non-stop to Marcus about everything from butterflies to her favorite books. Kate found herself studying Marcus as he listened to her daughter with complete attention, asking follow-up questions that showed he was genuinely interested in what a 7-year-old had to say. "You're good with kids," Kate observed when Lily excused herself to examine the ancient jukebox in the corner. Marcus stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "I have a daughter about Lily's age. Emma. You learn to listen when it's just the two of you." Something in his tone made Kate look at him more carefully. There was a story there, probably a painful one, but she didn't pry. In her experience, the most interesting people were the ones who'd been broken and rebuilt themselves. "It shows," she said quietly. "Whatever you're doing, it's working." Marcus felt something shift in his chest as he watched Kate smut at Lily across the diner. There was genuine warmth in her expression, the kind that couldn't be faked or bought. She'd insisted on ordering Lily the largest piece of pie on the menu, then listened with interest as the little girl explained her elaborate ranking system for desserts. For a woman who dressed like money and drove a car worth more than most houses, Kate seemed surprisingly down to earth. But there were mysteries in her green eyes, secrets that made Marcus curious, despite his better judgment. "Thank you for this," Kate said as they prepared to leave, Lily clutching a leftover piece of pie wrapped in foil. "For the car, for the pie, for just being kind to us." Marcus helped Lily into her booster seat, marveling at how such an expensive car seat could look so normal with a happy child in it. "Kindness doesn't cost anything," he said, then immediately felt embarrassed by how corny that sounded. But Kate's smile was radiant. "You'd be surprised how rare it is in my world," she murmured, so quietly he almost missed it. As they drove away, Kate watching Marcus grow smaller in her rear-view mirror, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Genuine connection. Not the calculated networking of business relationships or the careful politeness of therapy waiting rooms, but real human warmth. Lily was already asking when they could see the nice man again, and Kate found herself wondering the same thing. She'd built her entire career on reading people, on seeing through facades to find the truth underneath. With Marcus Thompson, what you saw was exactly what you got. A good man doing his best in circumstances that probably weren't easy. She didn't notice the small electrical tape wrapper that had fallen from his toolbox, now lying forgotten on her passenger seat. She didn't see the name of the auto parts store printed in faded letters, or recognize it as the same store where Morrison Industries bought supplies for their construction fleet. These details would matter later, when the careful walls she'd built around her secret life in Millbrook began to crumble. For now, she was simply a woman whose car had broken down, whose daughter was happy, and who'd been reminded that good people still existed in the world. The friendship that bloomed over the next few weeks felt as natural as breathing. Kate found excuses to bring Lily to Millbrook almost daily, doctor appointments that didn't exist, errands that could have been done anywhere, sudden cravings for pie at Dolly's diner. Each time they'd somehow encounter Marcus finishing his work around town. He fixed their flat tire outside the library. She left homemade cookies and coffee on his maintenance cart, with little notes that made him smile. Lily and Emma, Marcus's daughter, bonded over shared books and bubble-blowing competitions in the school playground after hours. The four of them fell into an easy rhythm that felt more like family than Kate had experienced in years. Marcus would teach the girls to identify birds during afternoon walks through Millbrook Park. Kate would help Emma with advanced math homework that challenged even her Ivy League education. They'd gather at the playground on Sunday afternoons, Marcus pushing both girls on swings while Kate spread blankets for impromptu picnics. In these moments, Kate forgot about board meetings and stock prices and custody battles. She was just Kate, not Catherine Morrison, billionaire CEO. But secrets have a way of revealing themselves in small details. Marcus noticed that Kate never seemed to check prices at the grocery store, picking up organic everything without glancing at the cost. She spoke 3 languages fluently, but claimed she'd picked up a little French in college. Her hands were soft as silk, unmarked by the kind of work that paid hourly wages. Most tellingly, Lily sometimes mentioned their big house, or Mommy's office building, before Kate would quickly change the subject. These inconsistencies piled up like puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit the picture Kate was painting. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday evening when Marcus was working late, waxing floors in the school gymnasium. Kate appeared in the doorway, soaked from the sudden downpour, her expensive clothes clinging to her frame. "The power went out at our hotel," she explained, though Marcus had never heard her mention staying at any local hotel. "Lily's scared of storms, and I thought maybe—" She gestured helplessly at the empty school. "Could we wait here until it passes?" Marcus nodded immediately, but something in her story didn't ring true. He found Kate in the school library an hour later, reading a Wall Street journal that someone had left behind. She was completely absorbed in an article about corporate mergers, her lips moving slightly as she read complex financial terminology that should have been foreign to someone who claimed to work in customer service. When she realized he was watching, she quickly folded the paper and shoved it aside. "Just looking at the pictures," she said, with a laugh that sounded forced. Marcus said nothing, but the doubt that had been growing in his mind crystallized into certainty. Kate was not who she claimed to be. "You don't have to lie to me," Marcus said quietly, settling into the chair across from her. The rain drummed against the library windows like an accusation. Kate's face went pale, then flushed red. "I don't know what you mean." But her voice lacked conviction, and her hands trembled as she smoothed her wet hair. Marcus leaned forward, his expression gentle but firm. "Kate, I've been around long enough to know when someone's running from something." The question is, what are you running from? And why did you think you needed to lie to me about it? The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Kate stared at her hands. These soft, pampered hands that had never known real work, and felt the weight of her deception crushing down on her. She'd built her entire relationship with Marcus on a foundation of half-truths and omissions. How could she explain that she was one of the most powerful women in America, that her company's decisions affected thousands of jobs, that her divorce had been front-page news in the business section? How could she tell him that she'd been pretending to be ordinary because ordinary was all she'd ever wanted to be? "My name is Catherine Morrison," she whispered finally. "I own Morrison Industries. We build shopping centers and office complexes all over the East Coast." Marcus's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or disappointment. "I came to Millbrook because I was tired of being that person all the time. I wanted Lily to have a normal childhood, not the goldfish bowl we live in back home. When I met you, you treated me like I was just another person, not a bank account or a business opportunity. I didn't want to lose that." Marcus sat back in his chair, processing this information. Catherine Morrison. He'd heard that name before, seen it in newspapers and on television. She was wealthy beyond imagination, powerful enough to buy and sell entire towns like Millbrook without feeling the financial impact. And she'd been lying to him for weeks, pretending to be someone she wasn't. The cookies she'd brought him probably cost more than his weekly grocery budget. The casual way she'd offered to help with Emma's school supplies suddenly made sense, but it also made him feel small and foolish. "So this has all been what exactly?" Marcus asked, his voice carefully controlled. "Some kind of social experiment? Rich lady plays house with the poor janitor." Kate's eyes filled with tears, but Marcus couldn't tell if they were genuine or just another performance. "It wasn't like that," she insisted. "My feelings for you, for Emma, they're real. The person I am when I'm with you, that's who I really want to be." Marcus stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "But it's not who you are," he said. "Is it, Ms. Morrison?" The way he said her name, with formal distance instead of the warm familiarity she'd grown to cherish, felt like a physical blow. Kate watched him walk toward the library door, his shoulders rigid with hurt and anger. She wanted to call after him, to explain that every moment they'd shared had been genuine, despite the lies surrounding them. But what could she say? That she'd been slumming it with the working class for entertainment? That his simple, honest life was a refreshing change from her usual circle of lawyers and board members? Every explanation sounded condescending in her own mind. Lily appeared in the doorway just as Marcus was leaving, her small face bright with excitement. "Marcus! Look what Emma taught me!" She held up a paper crane, folded with the careful precision of a 7-year-old's fingers. Marcus knelt down to examine her handiwork, and for a moment his expression softened. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," he said gently. "Emma's pretty smart, isn't she?" Lily nodded enthusiastically, then looked between Marcus and her mother with the intuitive awareness that children possess. "Are you sad?" she asked Marcus directly. "Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings," Marcus said, choosing his words carefully. He wouldn't take his hurt out on an innocent child, especially one who'd been through enough trauma already. "But that doesn't mean we stop caring about people." He kissed the top of Lily's head gently. "You keep practicing those cranes, okay? And take care of your mom." With that, he walked out into the rain, leaving Kate and Lily alone in the empty library, with nothing but the sound of water against windows and the weight of unspoken truths. The scandal erupted 3 weeks later like a dam bursting. Richard Morrison, Kate's ex-husband, had hired private investigators who'd been following her to Millbrook for months. Photos of Kate and Marcus appeared in the Philadelphia Business Journal with headlines like CEO's Secret Romance and Billionaire's Blue-Collar Boyfriend. The school board received anonymous calls questioning Marcus's inappropriate relationship with a parent. Reporters began showing up in Millbrook, asking locals about the mysterious woman who'd been spotted around town with their maintenance worker. Marcus lost his job on a Tuesday morning. Principal Henderson called him into her office with the regretful expression of someone delivering bad news they couldn't control. "I'm sorry, Marcus," she said, sliding a severance check across her desk. "The board feels your relationship with Ms. Morrison has created an uncomfortable situation for the school." Marcus stared at the check, 2 weeks' pay that was supposed to compensate for losing the job that kept him and Emma afloat. "We both know that's not what this is really about," he said quietly. The real reason was painted in black and white across the front page of that morning's paper. Marcus Thompson wasn't good enough for Catherine Morrison's world, and everyone knew it. The business community was buzzing with speculation about the billionaire CEO who'd been slumming it with a janitor. Some articles painted him as a gold digger, taking advantage of a vulnerable divorced woman. Others portrayed Kate as having some kind of breakdown, making irrational decisions that threatened her company's stability. None of them bothered to ask what either Marcus or Kate actually felt about each other. Emma came home from school in tears, having endured a day of whispers and pointed stares from classmates who'd seen their family featured in tabloid coverage. "Daddy, why are people saying mean things about us?" she asked, climbing into Marcus's lap on their small couch. Marcus held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo while trying to figure out how to explain adult cruelty to a 9-year-old. "Sometimes people don't understand when others are different from them," he said finally. "But that doesn't make the different thing wrong." Kate was trapped in her own prison of public scrutiny. Her lawyers advised cutting all contact with Marcus immediately to minimize damage to her custody case. Her board of directors questioned her judgment in a closed-door meeting that felt more like an intervention than a business discussion. The media painted her as either a victim of Marcus's manipulation or a woman having some kind of midlife crisis. None of the coverage mentioned Lily's panic attacks or Kate's desperate search for normalcy in a life that had been anything but normal since her divorce. The breaking point came when Richard's legal team filed for emergency custody of Lily, citing Kate's erratic behavior and poor judgment in romantic partners as evidence that she was unfit to raise their daughter. The court papers described Marcus as a potentially dangerous individual who has gained inappropriate access to the child, despite the fact that he'd never been anything but gentle and protective toward Lily. Kate read the filing in her Philadelphia penthouse, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the city she'd conquered but couldn't find peace in. "We can fight this," her attorney assured her, reviewing the custody papers with the clinical detachment of someone who billed $600 an hour. "Richard's accusations are baseless, but the media attention isn't helping our case." Kate stared out at the city lights, thinking about Marcus somewhere down there in Millbrook, probably struggling to find work after losing his job because of her. She thought about Emma, caught in the crossfire of adult decisions she couldn't understand. Most of all, she thought about Lily, who'd been asking every day when they could visit the bubble man again. "What if I end it?" Kate asked quietly. "What if I cut all ties with Marcus, make a public statement about moving forward with my life?" Her lawyer looked up from the papers with interest. "That would certainly help with the custody case," he admitted. "Show the court that you're prioritizing Lily's stability over your personal relationships." Kate nodded slowly, feeling something inside her chest crack like ice over deep water. She'd built her entire career on making hard decisions that benefited the greater good. This was just another business choice, she told herself. Just another sacrifice for the sake of winning. But even as she began dictating the press release that would end whatever she and Marcus had built together, Kate knew she was losing something that couldn't be measured in stock prices or custody agreements. She was losing the first genuine connection she'd felt in years. The first person who'd seen past her money and power to find something worth loving underneath. She was losing the man who'd taught her daughter to blow bubbles and helped her remember what it felt like to laugh without calculation. Marcus received the news through Emma's teacher, who'd seen the press release on her lunch break. Catherine Morrison had issued a statement explaining that her relationship with a Millbrook resident had been a brief lapse in judgment during a difficult period, and that she was focusing entirely on her daughter's well-being and her professional responsibilities. Jen, the teacher, delivered this information with the careful neutrality of someone who didn't want to get involved, but felt Marcus deserved to know. He thanked her politely and went home to explain to Emma why Kate and Lily wouldn't be visiting anymore. That night, Marcus sat on his trailer's small porch, holding the plastic bottle that had started everything. He unscrewed the cap and poured the bubble solution onto the ground, watching it disappear into the dirt like tears that couldn't be taken back. Kate had made her choice, and he couldn't blame her for it. She had responsibilities and pressures he couldn't understand, a life that operated by rules he'd never learned. He was just a janitor from a small town in Pennsylvania. She was Catherine Morrison, Billionaire CEO. The math had never been in their favor. 3 states away, Kate stood in her daughter's bedroom, watching Lily sleep with the plastic bubble wand clutched in her small fist. The little girl had cried herself to exhaustion after learning they wouldn't be going back to Millbrook, wouldn't be seeing Marcus or Emma again. "But he's our friend," Lily had sobbed. "He makes the scared feelings go away." Kate had no answer for that, no explanation that could make sense to a 7-year-old who only understood that the people she cared about were disappearing from her life again. The call came at 2:17 in the morning, jarring Kate from the restless sleep that had become her norm since leaving Millbrook. Lily's voice, small and terrified, echoed through the penthouse. "Mommy, I can't find you." Kate bolted upright, her heart hammering as she realized her daughter wasn't in her bed. The security system showed Lily had somehow bypassed the child-proof locks and made it to the building's stairwell, 17 floors up, in the middle of a panic attack that had triggered her sleepwalking. By the time building security found Lily, she was curled in a corner of the emergency stairwell, sobbing and calling for Marcus. "I want the bubble man," she kept repeating through her tears. "I want to go home to the bubble man." Kate held her daughter in the cold concrete stairwell, both of them shaking for different reasons, and realized that all her wealth and power meant nothing if she couldn't keep her child safe from the demons in her own mind. The custody hearing was in 3 days, and Lily was falling apart. "She's been regressing since you cut contact with your friend in Millbrook," Dr. Sarah Chen explained during their emergency therapy session the next morning. Kate sat in the expensive leather chair she'd occupied dozens of times before, but today the familiar office felt like a courtroom where she was on trial for her daughter's well-being. Children with anxiety disorders often attach to specific people or routines that make them feel secure. When those attachments are severed abruptly, it can trigger exactly this kind of behavioral regression. Kate stared at her hands, these manicured fingers that could sign deals worth millions but couldn't soothe her daughter's nightmares. "The custody hearing is in 2 days," she said quietly. "If Richard's lawyers hear about last night—" Dr. Chen leaned forward, her expression compassionate but direct. "Kate, you're so focused on winning the legal battle that you're losing sight of what's actually best for Lily. That little girl formed a healthy attachment to someone who made her feel safe. Taking that away to protect your public image isn't helping her heal." The truth hit Kate like cold water. She'd been so afraid of losing Lily to Richard's custody challenge that she'd been willing to sacrifice her daughter's actual well-being for the appearance of stability. She'd chosen the press release over her child's happiness, chosen corporate damage control over genuine healing. The irony was bitter as medicine, that in trying to prove she was a good mother, she'd made the choices a bad mother would make. Meanwhile, Marcus was discovering that unemployment in a small town came with its own special kind of humiliation. Word had spread about his connection to Catherine Morrison, and suddenly former friends treated him like he'd somehow betrayed their working-class solidarity by getting involved with a billionaire. Job interviews ended abruptly when potential employers recognized his name from newspaper coverage. "We're looking for someone with a lower profile," became the polite code for, "We don't want the drama that comes with hiring you." Emma was struggling too, dealing with classmates who whispered about her father's famous girlfriend, and teachers who looked at her with a mixture of pity and curiosity. She'd grown attached to Lily during their brief friendship, and the sudden disappearance of both Kate and Lily from their lives felt like another abandonment in a young life that had already seen too much loss. "Are they dead like Mommy?" Emma asked one evening, her 9-year-old logic trying to make sense of why people who cared about them would simply vanish. "No, sweetheart," Marcus assured her, pulling Emma close on their worn couch. "Sometimes grown-ups make decisions that don't make sense to kids. But Kate and Lily are alive and safe, just living their own life somewhere else." Emma considered this for a moment, then looked up at her father with the piercing directness that children possess. "Do you miss them?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Yeah, I do." Emma nodded solemnly. "Me too. I think they probably miss us back." The letter arrived on a Thursday, hand-delivered by a courier who looked entirely out of place in their trailer park. Emma found it slipped under their door when she got home from school, a cream-colored envelope with Kate's unmistakable handwriting. Inside, Marcus found a check that would cover their rent for 6 months and a note that made his hands shake as he read it. "I'm sorry for everything. You deserved honesty from the beginning. Please don't return this. It's not charity, it's an apology. You gave us something money can't buy. Kay." Marcus stared at the check for a long time, feeling the weight of Kate's guilt transformed into paper and ink. She was trying to solve their problems the only way she knew how, with money that meant nothing to her but everything to them. It was a generous gesture, wrapped in the kind of thinking that had created the distance between them in the first place. The assumption that his financial struggles were the real problem, that money could somehow compensate for trust broken and hearts bruised. He was still holding the letter when Emma came home from school early, tears streaming down her face and a bloody scrape on her knee from where she'd fallen running away from a group of older kids who'd been teasing her about Daddy's rich girlfriend. Marcus knelt down to clean her wound while she sobbed out the story of playground cruelty and 8-year-old social politics that had turned her into a target. "I told them Kate wasn't your girlfriend anymore," Emma hiccuped. "But they said mean things about you anyway." As Marcus bandaged his daughter's knee and listened to her catalogue the casual cruelties that children could inflict on each other, he felt something harden in his chest. Kate's money wouldn't fix this. Her apology letter wouldn't erase the whispers that followed Emma through school hallways. Her good intentions, wrapped in guilt and delivered by courier, couldn't undo the damage that their brief romance had caused to the quiet life he'd built for his daughter. They were better off without Catherine Morrison and her complicated world of wealth and scandal. But late that night, after Emma had fallen asleep clutching the paper crane that Lily had made for her, Marcus found himself standing in their small kitchen, holding Kate's letter and remembering the sound of her laugh in Dolly's diner. He remembered the way she'd listened to Emma explain her homework with genuine interest, the careful attention she'd paid to Lily's needs during her panic attacks. Most of all, he remembered the woman who'd sat in that library and admitted to lying because she'd wanted to be ordinary, wanted to be someone who could be loved for herself instead of her bank account. Maybe she'd made mistakes. Maybe they both had. But the woman who'd written this letter, who'd swallowed her pride to apologize and offer help she knew he probably wouldn't accept, that woman was worth missing. Even if they could never find their way back to what they'd briefly shared, even if the distance between their worlds was too vast to bridge, Marcus couldn't bring himself to hate Catherine Morrison. He could only hope that somewhere in Philadelphia, in her penthouse overlooking the city, she was finding a way to be happy without him. The custody hearing was scheduled for Friday morning, but Thursday night brought a phone call that changed everything. Lily had disappeared from their penthouse, somehow slipping past the security system and the doorman, who'd been explicitly instructed to watch for any unusual behavior. Kate discovered her daughter's absence at midnight when she'd gone to check on her before bed, finding only an empty room and an open window that led to the building's emergency fire escape. The police found Lily 3 hours later, 17 floors down and 5 blocks away, sitting on a bench at the bus station with her backpack full of bubble solution bottles she'd bought with her allowance. "I'm going to find Marcus," she told the officers through her tears. "He knows how to make the scared feelings stop." The little girl had managed to navigate Philadelphia's streets in the middle of the night, driven by 7-year-old logic that said, if her mother couldn't fix her broken mind, maybe the bubble man could. Kate arrived at the police station still wearing her pajamas, her hair unbrushed and her face streaked with tears that had started the moment she'd realized Lily was gone. She found her daughter wrapped in a police officer's jacket, still clutching a plastic bottle of bubble solution and asking when the bus to Millbrook would arrive. "Mummy, I have to go see Marcus," Lily explained, with the determined patience of a child who'd thought this through carefully. "My brain is broken again, and he's the only one who knows how to fix it." Sitting in that sterile police station at 4 in the morning, holding her daughter who'd risked everything to find the one person who made her feel safe, Kate finally understood what she'd lost when she'd chosen public relations over personal truth. She'd sacrificed her daughter's healing for the approval of strangers who would never love Lily the way she did. She'd let lawyers and board members dictate her heart's choices, and nearly lost her child in the process. "Officer, I need to make a phone call," Kate said quietly, her voice steady, despite the tears still flowing down her cheeks. The policewoman who'd been handling Lily's case looked skeptical. "Ma'am, it's 4 in the morning." Kate managed a small smile, the first genuine expression she'd worn in weeks. "I know exactly what time it is, and I know exactly who I need to call." Marcus's phone rang at 4:15, jarring him from the light sleep that had been his norm since losing his job. Emma stirred in the next room but didn't wake as he fumbled for the device, expecting bad news at this hour. Kate's voice, shaky and exhausted, cut straight through his defenses. "Marcus, I'm sorry to call so late, but Lily ran away. She's safe now, but she was trying to get to you. She said you're the only one who can fix her broken brain." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He could picture Lily, small and determined, trying to navigate an adult world to find the safety she'd lost when their families separated. "Is she okay?" he asked, all his anger at Kate evaporating in the face of concern for the little girl who'd somehow claimed a piece of his heart. "She's okay physically," Kate replied, her voice thick with tears. "But Marcus, she's not okay in here." She tapped her chest, though he couldn't see the gesture. "And neither am I." "Where are you?" Marcus asked, already reaching for his clothes with his free hand. Kate gave him the address of the police station, then hesitated before speaking again. "You don't have to come. I know I have no right to ask anything of you after what I did. But if you could just talk to her on the phone, maybe tell her that everything's going to be okay." Marcus was already putting on his shoes. "Kate, I'll be there in an hour. Just keep her calm until I arrive." And the drive to Philadelphia felt endless, Marcus's old pickup truck struggling to maintain highway speeds, while his mind raced through everything that could go wrong. Emma had woken when he'd kissed her goodbye, and he'd had to explain in whispered words why he was leaving in the middle of the night to help the little girl and her mother who'd disappeared from their lives. "Bring them home, Daddy," Emma had said with 9-year-old wisdom. "They belong with us." Kate was pacing in the police station waiting area when Marcus arrived, still wearing pajamas under a hastily thrown-on coat, her hair disheveled and her face bare of makeup. She looked nothing like the polished CEO who'd dominated business headlines, and everything like a terrified mother who'd nearly lost her child. When she saw Marcus walk through the doors, her composure cracked completely. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, her voice breaking on the words. Marcus didn't hesitate. He crossed the waiting room and pulled Kate into his arms, feeling her sob against his chest with relief and exhaustion and guilt that had been building for weeks. "It's okay," he murmured into her hair, the same words he'd used to comfort Emma after nightmares. "We're going to figure this out." Kate clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had been spinning out of control since the moment she'd chosen her public image over her private truth. "Daddy Marcus!" Lily's voice rang across the police station as she spotted him through the office window. The little girl ran to him with the same enthusiasm she'd shown for his bubbles, throwing herself into his arms with complete trust. Marcus knelt down to catch her, feeling his heart break and heal simultaneously as she wrapped her small arms around his neck. "I knew you'd come," she said, with the absolute certainty of a child who'd never doubted that good people kept their promises. "I'll always come when you need me," Marcus promised, meaning every word despite the complications that surrounded them. He looked over Lily's head to meet Kate's eyes, seeing hope and fear and love all tangled together in her expression. Whatever happened next, whatever legal battles or media storms lay ahead, this moment was real. This connection between all of them was worth fighting for. "Now, how about we get you both home?" But as they prepared to leave the police station, Kate's phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. "Saw the news reports about Lily's disappearance. Richard's team is filing emergency custody papers this morning. We need to talk immediately." Kate stared at the message, feeling the walls of her carefully constructed world closing in once again. She'd found her way back to Marcus, and Lily had found her peace, but the legal system that governed their lives was about to tear them apart again. Marcus saw the look on Kate's face and gently took the phone from her hands, reading the message that had drained all color from her cheeks. "Hey," he said softly, tilting her chin up until she met his eyes. "Whatever this is, we'll face it together. No more running, no more lying, no more choosing other people's opinions over what's right for our family." Kate felt something inside her chest unfurl at his words, something that had been tightly wound since the moment she'd decided to protect her public image instead of her private happiness. "Our family," she repeated, testing the words like a prayer she'd forgotten how to say. Marcus nodded, his hand gentle on her face, as Lily dozed against his shoulder, finally calm for the first time in weeks. "That's what this is, isn't it? Messy and complicated and probably impossible, but still family." Kate kissed his palm where it rested against her cheek, tasting salt from tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Yes," she whispered. "That's exactly what this is." 6 months later, Marcus stood in the kitchen of Kate's Philadelphia penthouse, teaching Emma and Lily how to make pancakes, while Saturday morning sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. The custody battle had been brutal but brief, ending when Richard's own investigation into Marcus revealed a decorated military veteran who'd worked 3 jobs to support his daughter after his wife's death. The media narrative had shifted overnight from Billionaire's questionable judgment to inspiring love story, though both Marcus and Kate had learned to ignore headlines entirely. Kate emerged from her home office wearing jeans and one of Marcus's old work shirts, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail that would have horrified her corporate image consultants. "Any luck with the bubble formula?" she asked, kissing Marcus's cheek as she reached around him to steal a piece of bacon from the pan. He'd been experimenting for weeks, trying to recreate the bubble solution that had started everything, but with ingredients that would create stronger, longer-lasting bubbles for Lily's birthday party. "Getting closer," Marcus admitted, holding up a bottle of slightly cloudy liquid. "Emma suggested adding glycerin, and I think she might be onto something." Kate smiled as she watched their daughters work together, Emma patiently showing Lily how to flip pancakes without sending them flying across the kitchen. The 8-year age difference had melted away over the months, replaced by the easy camaraderie of sisters who'd chosen each other rather than simply sharing genetics. The penthouse had been transformed over the months, Marcus's practical touches softening Kate's sterile corporate aesthetic. Emma's artwork covered the refrigerator, Lily's books filled formerly empty shelves, and the formal dining room had been converted into a family game area, complete with Marcus's carefully restored vintage arcade machine. Kate had shocked her board of directors by announcing she was stepping back from day-to-day operations to focus on strategic initiatives and family time, corporate speak for choosing happiness over endless quarterly growth. "Mrs. Morrison called," Kate announced, settling at the breakfast bar with her coffee. "She wants to know if you'll consider taking the facilities management position at the new Morrison Community Center." Marcus paused in his pancake flipping. Kate's mother had been initially skeptical of her daughter's relationship with a blue-collar worker, but Marcus's quiet competence and obvious devotion to both Kate and Lily had won her over completely. The job offer was her way of acknowledging that Marcus belonged in their family, not as a charity case, but as an equal partner. "It's a good opportunity," Marcus said carefully, though Kate could hear the excitement he was trying to hide. The community center was his kind of project, a place where families like his could access resources and programs that were usually reserved for wealthier neighborhoods. Managing its operations would mean steady work, good benefits, and the chance to help kids who reminded him of Emma at her most vulnerable. "What do you think?" Kate asked, though she already knew his answer from the way his eyes lit up when he talked about the project. "I think," Marcus said, pulling Kate close with one arm while keeping his other hand on the pancake spatula, "that some jobs are worth taking even when they're offered by your girlfriend's mother." Kate laughed, the sound bright and unguarded in the morning kitchen. "Girlfriend? Is that what I am?" Marcus pretended to consider this seriously. "Well, you do live with me, help raise my daughter, and let me experiment with bubble formulas in your expensive kitchen. I'd say that qualifies." Lily appeared at Marcus's elbow, having abandoned pancake duty to investigate the latest bubble batch. "Can we test it now?" and she asked with the impatience of a 7-year-old who'd been promised bubbles for 20 minutes. Marcus handed her the experimental wand, watching as she carefully dipped it in the solution and blew gently. A stream of perfect bubbles emerged, larger and more iridescent than any they'd managed before, floating lazily through the kitchen like small miracles. "It's working!" Emma cheered from the stove, abandoning her pancakes to blow bubbles of her own. Soon the kitchen was filled with floating spheres of soap and light, the girls laughing as they tried to catch them before they popped. Kate watched her daughter chase bubbles through their home, no trace of anxiety or fear on her face, just pure joy and the security of knowing she was loved and safe. Marcus found the original bubble bottle in a kitchen drawer, the one he'd carried for 3 years and nearly thrown away the night Kate had issued her press release. He'd kept it as a reminder of something beautiful that had been lost, but now it felt like a symbol of something found instead. "You know what I realized?" he said to Kate as they watched their daughters play. "The magic was never in the bubble solution. It was in sharing something beautiful with people you love." Kate leaned against Marcus's chest, feeling his arms wrap around her waist as bubbles drifted past the windows 17 floors above the city. "I love you," she said simply, the words she'd been afraid to speak for months finally finding their voice. Marcus pressed his lips to the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo mixed with bubble solution and pancake batter. "I love you too," he murmured. "All of you. This whole beautiful, impossible family we've built." "Daddy Marcus," Lily called from across the kitchen, having appointed herself the official title giver in their unconventional household. "Will you teach me how to make the heart-shaped bubbles for my birthday party?" Marcus grinned, remembering the first time he'd blown bubbles for a frightened little girl in a school hallway. "Of course, sweetheart. But first, finish your pancakes. Artists need fuel for their work." As they gathered around the breakfast table that Kate had never used before Marcus moved in, Emma chattering about her science project while Lily planned elaborate bubble displays for her upcoming party, Kate felt a contentment she'd never known was possible. Her phone sat silent on the counter, no urgent emails or board meetings demanding her attention. Her calendar was deliberately light, filled with soccer games and parent-teacher conferences and family dinners that mattered more than any corporate merger. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, noticing Kate's distant smile as she absently cut Lily's pancakes into perfect squares. Kate looked around the table at her chosen family, these people who'd taught her that love wasn't a transaction or a business arrangement, but something as simple and magical as bubbles floating through morning sunlight. "I'm thinking," she said, "that sometimes the best investments are the ones you can't put a price on." Marcus reached across the table to squeeze her hand, his fingers still slightly sticky with pancake batter and bubble solution. "Speaking of investments," he said with mock seriousness, "I've been thinking about proposing a merger." Kate raised an eyebrow, slipping back into corporate mode for just a moment. "Oh, really? What kind of merger?" Marcus grinned, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket and setting it next to her coffee cup. "The permanent kind. Full integration of assets, shared management responsibilities, and a lifetime contract with no buyout clause." Emma and Lily erupted in squeals of excitement as Kate stared at the ring box, her hands trembling as she reached for it. Inside was a simple solitaire diamond, elegant but not ostentatious, the kind of ring that could belong to a billionaire CEO or a janitor's wife without anyone questioning where it came from. "Marcus Thompson," Kate said, her voice thick with tears and laughter. "Are you asking me to marry you in corporate merger terminology? Is it working?" Marcus asked, suddenly nervous despite months of planning this moment. Kate launched herself into his arms, nearly knocking over her coffee in the process. "Yes," she laughed against his neck. "To the merger, to the marriage, to the lifetime contract with no buyout clause. Yes to all of it." The girls cheered and clapped, Emma immediately beginning to plan wedding details, while Lily announced that she wanted to be the official bubble blower at the ceremony. Later that evening, after the girls had fallen asleep exhausted from a day of celebration and bubble making, Marcus and Kate sat on the penthouse balcony overlooking the city lights of Philadelphia. Kate wore her engagement ring and Marcus's old sweater, her bare feet tucked under his thigh as they shared a bottle of wine and watched the world continue spinning below them. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked, only half joking as he thought about everything Kate was giving up to build this life with him. Kate considered the question seriously, looking out at the city that had been her kingdom before she'd learned the difference between power and happiness. "I regret the lies," she said finally. "I regret the time we lost because I was too afraid to trust you with the truth. But choosing you, choosing this family, choosing love over everything else? No regrets at all." She turned in his arms, her green eyes reflecting the city lights like stars. "What about you? Any second thoughts about marrying into all this chaos?" Marcus looked through the glass doors at their home, where Emma's math homework was scattered across Kate's antique dining table and Lily's art projects covered every available surface. It was nothing like the quiet, careful life he'd built in his trailer, but it was fuller and richer and more beautiful than anything he'd dared to dream. "My only regret," he said, kissing Kate softly in the night air, "is that it took us so long to find each other." As they sat together on the balcony, watching bubbles from Lily's afternoon experiments still floating occasionally past the windows, Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled to a photo Emma had taken earlier. It showed all four of them in the kitchen, covered in flour and soap suds, laughing as bubbles drifted around them like blessings. "You know what I want to do with this picture?" he asked Kate. She shook her head, curious. "I want to frame it and put it in the community center, right in the main lobby where every family can see it." "Why?" Kate asked, though she already suspected she knew the answer. Marcus smiled, that same gentle expression she'd fallen in love with in a small-town diner months ago. "Because sometimes people need to see that happiness doesn't have a price tag. That love looks different for every family, but it's always worth fighting for. That a janitor's daughter and a billionaire's daughter can be sisters. That a woman who runs companies can find her home with a man who fixes things." Kate kissed him then, tasting wine and contentment and the promise of all their tomorrows. When they finally pulled apart, she noticed a single bubble floating past the balcony, somehow surviving from the afternoon's experiments to find them in the darkness. They watched it drift higher into the night sky until it disappeared among the stars, carrying with it all their wishes for the future. "I love you, Marcus Thompson," Kate whispered against his lips. "Thank you for teaching me that the best magic happens when you blow bubbles with love." Marcus held her close, thinking about the frightened little girl he'd met in a school hallway and the amazing woman she'd led him to. "I love you too, Catherine Morrison. Thank you for teaching me that some investments really are priceless." In the morning, they would start planning a wedding that would be featured in business magazines and small-town newspapers alike. Marcus would accept the community center position, and Kate would continue restructuring her company to prioritize work-life balance. Emma would help Lily prepare for her first school science fair, and Lily would teach Emma advanced origami techniques she'd learned in art therapy. Their life would be full of challenges and complications, media attention and family dynamics that required careful navigation. But tonight, they were simply a family sitting together in the darkness, surrounded by the city lights and the lingering magic of soap bubbles, proving that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the most ordinary acts of kindness. Sometimes a janitor with a plastic bottle full of bubble solution can save more than just a frightened child's afternoon. Sometimes he can save an entire family's future, one perfect bubble at a time.